And we're live. Hello to day 5, I think, today in Global Hack Week said. Or was it day 4? Who knows? We're wrapping up our smart home stream. So we have a lot to do today. Somehow, some way, in the midst of my other work, I managed to actually get a lot of content in for today. So the question is whether we're actually going to finish it. But if you are just joining in, I'll go ahead and catch y'all up, but I'm going to give it another minute or so as people trickle in, because it does tend to happen, especially when people are taking a break between the last event or they're running late. Hello, hello. I see some people who have attended some of the past streams. Super excited to show you what we have to wrap up. For once, knock on wood, we are not going to have a bug that stops us from finishing somehow, some way, again. But it looks like there's plenty of y'all to start. So let me go ahead and share that link to the check-in in case you forgot or haven't had a chance to go ahead and check in. Go ahead and do so. Give everybody else a little bit longer to jump in, and then we'll get into it. But let me go ahead and start zooming in so everybody can see things. Gotta be super duper big on everything. And let me give you an overview of what we've done. So part 1 was a lot of setup, but really laying the foundational groundwork. You are welcome to check out past streams for what we've done, but I'll again give you the overview. So like I said, first stream was setup. What that meant was that we were, creating a Firebase real-time database, and also meant that we were setting up our ESP32 and really getting an idea of how to work with microcontrollers, whether you're doing it through a simulation or in person because you happen to get your hands on one of them. And what came out of that is that a real-time database from Firebase is not the only decision or choice you can pick as far as the database goes. You could pick a relational if you have a really strong understanding of what the data is going to look like out of your smart home collaborator or aggregator, or however you'd like to refer to it. But also that you should pick both a microcontroller and a database that best suits your needs and purposes. Being mindful that as you add more things, you need more RAM, you may need more cores, how you need something to manage compute, and so on. So I realized I could be showing you what we have on our planning document, which is exactly what we did in the first bit. We made our Firebase project. We set up the authentication rules, making sure that only an authenticated user can actually interact with things, talking a little bit or touching a little bit on security. Of the risks that come with IoT is that once you allow something onto your network, there is always a risk of any backdoors or security concerns with any of the devices that you're using. Even your fridge, if it's a smart fridge, could give somebody access to your Wi-Fi network. So, good practice is just to set up a separate Wi-Fi network that's like the IoT network or the 3.5G or however you want to refer to it. That because it doesn't need as strong of a connection, especially because again most routers do come with 3.5, I think, or something like that, and Wi-Fi 5 point whatever. I'm not the most versed in that, and also I am a tad bit tired because I've been doing quite a bit for the last few days. Bit of a busy weekend. Your smart fridge specifically could in fact be a risk. Your smart dishwasher or any other smart applications. Just a heads up, keeping them on a separate, what's it called? A separate network is just good practice. Or it's why you have a guest network, for example. So that way people are slightly removed from some of your more pertinent things or to avoid them having control over your TV. Who'd have thunk? Anyway, so we made that Firebase database, and then we jumped over to our Arduino code to just test out whether or not the connection worked. We talked a little bit about what is IoT, what are smart home, dashes and ways to integrate things, what's hardware, of course, and then kind of putting that all together. And then we picked a sensor that we wanted to use. I had chosen a temperature sensor because that's actually a very common beginner project sensor to use, but unfortunately my temperature sensor was broken, so it gave us really out there values, but we just said that it's from another planet, and that's okay. It's from a very, very cold planet. But the thing that actually did work was a sound sensor. It's not calibrated, but we can at least use that as a dummy value because it does change based on what we're doing. You can find this on YouTube or on Twitch. I believe part 2 2 maybe briefly unavailable, just because of some things that are going on. Which reminds me, I need to send off one quick message. Because I just got a response on something that was important. Right. So part 2 might not be available for at least a couple days, just because of some other issues that happened. And then part 1 is definitely available. Part 2 is actually quite short, though, because we got through quite a bit of what we wanted to do. Anyway, we did choose an actuator, but I never got around to implementing that because the database just worked. So I was like, well, that's a future challenge for someone else to do. Partially because of the timing, and also just because I'm like, well, I don't have a separate power system to do some of the stronger stuff that I wanted to do this servo. And I didn't get the hue working in time because it required a bunch of setup. Anyway, so we did a number of things. We talked about, again, relational versus non-relational databases. And then I explained a lot about what's going on in this code that we pasted into our ESP32 or your preferred microcontroller, which you might need to adjust things just depending on what you're using. So we'll be coming back to this code a little bit. And then for part 2, like I said, we integrated things in. We set up the web app for part 3, which was, again, through Firebase. So we're using Firebase hosting. So we are now at part 3, and we have quite a bit on our list for today. And we only have less than 2 hours. What I'm hoping to get through is that we will get through most of the web app or web dev stuff, where we're just getting the libraries integrated into a basic HTML file, going back to bare bones, which is not, I think, from my understanding, standard for Firebase. They actually prefer that you're using like a package library or some form of modular approach to things, which we're kind of doing the modular, but kind of not, being, again, that we're doing it bare bones. Because like it's been a while, and I'm like, I should know how to do, the original, the low-lying stuff, But also I'm like, I didn't want to figure out the nuances of getting NPM started up because timing. So I did get it working. So we're going to walk through how to do that. I did already delete what the automatic like project creation set up for me. What that means is I just deleted the index.html, so we can start from scratch. I do know the libraries that we're using. If not, we can pull it up on the project configuration, is what it is. And then we also have to update the ESP32 that I just finished doing like 20 minutes ago, to save the data under timestamps. Because right now what we've been doing is it's actually been updating the data in our database and not actually storing something that's more than one entry. So now that we're at the point that we want to use this, we want timestamps for when things were injected in the database. Basically, when was the data created? That way, in the future, we could do something like charting, or basically making meaning of the data that we're collecting. So I want to give you, again, this is a smart home starter kit. So my goal is give you the pieces to integrate the things that you want. That way you can go off and do things that are bigger and better, such as making data visualizations or dashboards or reactive UI or web frameworks or something that might be able to actually automate your home as a result of it. Like depending on the button that you hook up, just clicking a button might be able to turn on a light for you or something else in the future. That said, there are plenty of other ways to use IoT, like, again, the Hasio Home Assistant, an open source approach to what HomeKit provides, and Google Home, where they provide ways to integrate with other IoT solutions, knowing that there's like a ton out there. Zigbee, Nest, which was originally like a separate network, but now is not, and a variety of other things. But as you can see, everybody needs an app to do things. And so HomeKit and Hasio make it so you don't need as many apps, ideally. You might need it for setup, but at least it just puts it in a nice dash for you. But let's say you wanted to add in, other custom live time data that's not from an API, but from your actual sensors. We're not getting into that, but again, my goal was, do you at least understand where things are coming from enough to do something with it? So getting back on track, we have a couple things. I already did this, and so I'm thinking we'll actually start with this to just show you what I did, show you the changes to the code, because it is working, and then we'll get into the web app side of things. Oh, you know what? I didn't actually show you the initial web app working. Okay, so I do have it working, and let me do one quick thing. Command A, Command C, undo. Let me go undo some things so that way we can see it working with the web stuff. And then we'll do the update. I just need to put this in a separate spot. Otherwise, that's going to be a very painful update process because it won't be so smooth. Yeah, okay. Let me go paste this somewhere. It's not keeps, it's notes. I'm on the wrong system. New note. Paste. Great. All right, so we have that code saved somewhere because I was quite lazy. Let's go ahead and do the web stuff. Oh, that's right, because I did this in order because that's the way I wanted to do things. Smart. Let's move this actually above because we need that to happen first so we can get access to the data. My laptop sounds like it's going to take off, and that's okay. It's doing its best. And same thing here. There we go. Okay. I'm using a Mac for my Arduino stuff, so I do not have a Windows key. And I don't trust... I save so many things to my clipboard. That is a dangerous ask to have me record what I'm doing. Anyway, let me make sure we're all good here. Yes, all right. So let's get to it. I'm gonna go ahead and close my laptop before it tries to leave this planet because it's certainly doing its best. It is old and it shows and it knows. And you know, again, everybody's just doing their best out there. Okay. Let's get back to our code, hack that, zoom in so everybody can see things. All right, so like I said, I cleared out the original HTML file that they gave us where they said that when we loaded it, it said, hey, you know, this is your Firebase hosting like web page, you know, go edit. And it had a bunch of libraries and a whole bunch of other things. Point is, we deleted all that. I already have the libraries saved elsewhere, like that I know what versions we need, but what they're giving us isn't exactly what we need. If I go to, let's see, let me pull this up. I'm going to just paste this on the screen so people can see. All right. So they gave us some sample or some initial code configurations, but specifically they were giving us things like, hey, if you need the specific libraries, go to this link. But when I looked at like what they gave us as a default, they did not give us full links. They gave us like __/ and it's like some internal library. So I went hunting through this link to see what I needed. And the answer is I was going to need an auth library, the app library, which is by default included / needed. And then, of course, the real-time database instead of like a Firestore or other aspects. So I needed the G static links for those things. And again, I have those pulled up. So we're going to go ahead and copy this part over because I don't want to mess it up. But in this index.js that I'm using, I'm importing the libraries here instead of through the HTML file. But as you can see, I'm using something like gstatic Firebase.js, the version number, and then what I specifically need. You will always need the Firebase app. In our case, we need the database, which refers to the real-time database. And then we also need auth because we've set up our rules in such a way that in order to read or write data, that you need to sign in, which is why we have some of these other aspects for later. And as far as unlimited storage, I'm actually not sure as far as unlimited storage, but I do know that what I've been using so far is the Spark plan for this project. And as long as I don't go over my usage rates, I'm not really gonna go and run over. And if not, they'll just pause my services is what I was understanding. Yeah, I wish it did too, but you know, this is the modern age. We're not allowed to edit things. Anyway, well, let's go ahead and save that index.js and let's come back to our index.html because we need some, you know, basic HTML things, which is we need our doc type. We know that it's an HTML file. We know we're going to need our HTML and language, and we need all these other informations. And you can see that Copilot is telling us we're making a React app, which is not right. We are doing smart home data access for now as our title. And so it gives us some sample body and head content, but specifically we're going to need to add in our index as a module because we are importing things. So let's go ahead and after the title, add in our script. And so as you can see, it has a module here. And the only reason I'm not typing this is I don't want to make mistakes because I when I read things, I don't retain what's capitalized and what's not. So rather than risk things, I think I just set up a Google Home Mini somewhere. We wanted to make sure that it's accessing, of course, our index.js, which is in our public folder. And so now it's going to go ahead and call this. We know that it's going to call this SDK. Fantastic. It's not going to do anything with it, but that's okay. And then as far as our body, we know that we're going to need a login. So let's have, let's see what Copilot does. Login to, I need to login to Smart Home Firebase database. Let's see what Copilot gives us. So they're giving us div ID of login, header, login, an input type of email, an input type of password, and our login button. I kind of like that so far. It's pretty convenient. Let's go ahead and close it up. We may edit some of these fields just because I don't like some of the way these are named. That's okay. You'll notice that I'm not using a form for right now. I think it would be smarter to use a form, but we'll see what issues it introduces later, and maybe that's a talking point for you in the future of whether you're going to use a form or not. Alrighty. And then we also want to make sure that we actually present the sound data. And so we're going to use, let's say, another div for this, just so that way we get all the properties we could possibly want. Looks like it's telling us smart home data access, get data, log out. We need some of those things, but let's go ahead and say show sound value and log out button and see what it comes up with. Because again, we might have to change that. Okay, so it looks like we're given an ID of sound, a header, and we get some other information, which is pretty useful. Let's go ahead and leave this part out. I think, let's see. So we have another div where it's giving us an ID, which I don't quite like. Let's place that here. And then we have the header one sound and then our button for logout. I think this button should be outside of the div. Just for the sake of it should appear in place of the login eventually. Let's go ahead and delete that while we're at it and have it add in a value later. Yeah. So let's see. So we've got this set up with our initial HTML, which is, again, quite quick. I'm making Copilot do most of the work for me. We're going to go ahead and clean a lot of this up because I do have some reference code that I keep glancing at. But again, I want to make sure that Copilot is usable enough with the work that I did, but also clean up some of my work because it was garbage. I got it working, but it's not good work. And then let's go ahead and jump to the index.js. We know that we're going to need our configuration. So we're going to go ahead and leave that empty for now. And we also know that we're going to have to initialize it, which is already giving us great. We also know that we need the database. Fantastic. And we're going to need the authentication. Awesome. So we love that it's already giving us some initial information. Now, as you can see, it's already autofilling, getting the form for us, which is quite nice. Do I want the whole form? Do I want pieces of the form? Not super sure yet. The way I currently have this in my working document that I have pulled up is that everything is a get element by ID, which, while nice, gets old very fast. For the purposes of, again, prototyping and throwing something together fast, this is fine. The moment we're looking into a more clean production level, this is probably not the way to do it. And if anyone in chat wants to tell me how to do it better, that would be great because I'd love to learn. But otherwise, we're going to do this very hackery approach to things. Let's see what else it pulls up. We have the logout button. Great. Fantastic. You're giving me the login email, the password, the error. Sure, these are all nice. Anything else you want to give me? Okay, we don't actually need this one or this one. Let's leave those. And it looks like it's giving us the event listener right off the bat. Love that. And we want to prevent the default action, get the email and everything, and then go ahead and sign in with everything. That's actually pretty similar to what I had. The only difference is I think this doesn't have any log out error. Let me see. Yeah. So there's one thing that's missing in our setup, which is there should be an error message that's hidden, which I'm going to paste over. We'll talk about that hidden class in a little bit. But as you can see, again, fairly useful setting me up. Problem is it doesn't quite match all the things that we need. Not as nice. Let's see. Where is the missing piece? I believe it's actually probably here. Alrighty. So we have our initial login. Yeah. We have login form, add event listener. Do we actually have this be named login form? Right now, this is actually named login. So let's actually replace that to be login. Just because that's not the same. Let's make sure logout button is the same. We have logout BTN. Awkward. Let's go fix that. Let's go put this side by side so we can make sure that things are aligned in the way that they should be. Because right now they are not. I'm going to have to zoom out for this just so I can read a little bit. But all right. So we have our login ID. We have our logout button. We have our we just have ID of email and password. So let's go ahead and also update that. And then we have error as a class, but error messages are ID. So let's go ahead and change that. Okay, so our elements are now matched as far as IDs go. Yes, especially that. Or if they're not an authenticated user, perhaps. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen either. Cool. Let's see. Login form. This does look somewhat similar, if not exactly. The only difference is we don't have those. Okay, cool. So we have our login form. Let's go ahead and write that log out button. Add event listener. On click, sign out. This is using the authentication function, which, as you can see, I believe it didn't give us that. Oh, no, it did. That's right, because I copied it over. So we have the sign out already imported from the Firebase auth system. And so that one is also, we can use .den, console logs, perfect. Not that bad. Let's go ahead and close that up. And then the last thing, as Copilot's already giving us, is that we need the on-auth state changed. And it's telling us if the user is signed in, give us a console log. Alrighty. So far, so good. I'm pretty happy with what it has automatically set up for us. There are things, of course, that it's missing, and that's fine. But I wanted, again, proof of concept, show how quickly it came together, because this did not come together that quickly yesterday. Alt-Z, thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Now I can read. Hooray. I really don't mind zooming in for chat and making sure that if anybody's watching on mobile, they can still see what's going on. But like, it breaks up my ability to read things at times. But it is what it is. Okay. So the other thing that we want to do is that we want to get the sound data. And that will be on auth state changed. So in this section, we're going to go ahead and say get sound value from Firebase RTDB, which is real-time database. Let's see what Copilot comes up with. Looks like they're giving us the reference to the database. They're giving us a snapshot. Perfect. Love to see it. So far, pretty useful. These are all things that come in that original library. Let's go ahead and look at that. So as you can see, it has the on value. I believe ref is also used now in that one function. So a snapshot is getting my understanding is that it's just getting the value in the database, but let's see what comes up when we go investigate. Oopsie daisy. All right, on value. Not giving us information. Totally fine. Let's use Copilot to explain it. It's a variable or constant, but give me that in let's see. Copilot, explain this. Let's see. There we go. Close that up. Let's see what it's giving us. Okay. So it's using Firebase Authentication and RTDB. We already know what's going on in the auth state. We know what's going on in the user is signed in, but it's receiving the value reference to the database location sound is created using the reference function, taking the database object and the path as sound as arguments. I don't believe we actually have the sound path. I think it's test int, which I need to go create because I deleted that to test things. But looking for data changes on value. So that's when the data changes. Alrighty. Inside the callback function, the snapshot objects represents the current data at that location. And then we extract that data. So I guess it means what it means. Like a snapshot is a current look at what you would be seeing in that space. A snapshot is a picture, is the data, is the value at the time of checking. So with that context, makes a little bit more sense. Weird that they would use snapshot, not like current value or something, but you know, everybody wants to be unique. You see it all the time. Okay. The other thing is that we don't actually have this writing back to our HTML. So write sound to index.html. Let's see what Copilot gives us. Perfect. They're giving us document get element by, oh, excuse me. Getting it by ID. It's not sound, but sound value. So let's change it here. Yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, is there a this somewhere? Did I miss that? Where's there a this? Oh, it's like the this keyword in JavaScript. My bad. I don't know enough JavaScript to confirm that, which is unfortunate. But if that's snapshot is like this keyword, I see. No problem. I appreciate you engaging. This, as a PhD student, like who does learning stuff or learning sciences relatedly or tangentially, like this is good. This is how you learn, by engaging with the content and asking questions or seeing how it relates to your past knowledge. You won't believe how much ChatGPT helped with this code. It did so much. Like, was I able to at least confirm what was right and wrong? Yes. But as far as getting started, I was like, what do I do? And then it wrote me stuff. And then I was like, your stuff doesn't work. And then it's like, try this stuff. And I'm like, your stuff works. Now I need to go understand it, which then I was like, oh, but this makes sense. It's just I don't know the words. That's usually how my interactions with ChatGPT goes, to be honest. Okay. So we have sound stuff set up. Let me go back to the database really quick. I'm only not showing this because it's stuff that we've already seen. I just deleted it because I wanted to. Let's make this 5. Okay. All right. I don't believe this is actually going to work. Let's also remove that hidden feature on the index, I think. But let's see what happens. So I need to go to here. Let's let that go ahead and deploy. Oopsie daisy. I forgot to No, you're absolutely right. It is never a waste of time to ask questions. I would much rather spend my time answering questions than to exist in pure silence, or without engagement, I guess. Not that I'm like requiring it, but I would rather give the opportunity to people who want to understand it the chance to ask freely, because there's no dumb questions. Because I don't always know the answer, but I'll show you how I go figure it out. And that sometimes is enough to help other people figure out. You're not distracting me at all. We are speeding through a lot of things that I actually already wanted to do. We're doing good. Okay, so supposedly it's deployed. Let's go ahead and open that. We have a login. We have a logout button, which is super nice. It's not very zoomed in. Let me go ahead and do that really quick. One moment. What I'm trying to do is just log in and see what comes up in console. Nada. So some things aren't working. Alrighty. Logout button. Oh, didn't we change? Nope, logout button. Email, password. Login itself is here. Then we have login form that has the listener. Let me double check something on my side. We got our email. Did we call it login earlier? Yeah, we did. Get the value. We sign in. User credential. I actually didn't want that to happen. I just wanted to show. Oh, you know what? We didn't have an error message. So nothing's been entered into the database yet. In fact, nothing will be entered into the database from the index side. What I'm specifically looking to do is just confirm some other stuff. What was I doing? Oh, that's right. I was checking to make sure that we had some other things that we needed. I'm just comparing my index. All right, if user test/int on value. I mean, it's not going to get this until something changes, which is fine. Let's go paste this code to replace it temporarily. So that way sound referential, and then we have sound data. Okay, so this is the same. And then, that should not be up here. This was wrong. Let's delete that. And then else user signed out. Okay, so now we have if user is corrected. Okay, there are some other missing things I'd like to add. I briefly touched on this, but something that was in what I had pasted over was the, my goodness, what is it called? The hidden class that I was adding. And that is going to be probably up here. Yeah, let's put that up here. And so we have these elements that we want to hide and show based on who signed in when, right? So we're going to go ahead and add, yes. Let me ping a friend and see if they can log in and get rid of that. we'll see if my friend responds, in which case I can get them to fix that. Alrighty. Let's go back and do this as well. We can replace this with this. Oh my goodness, no. Stop that. No, don't do that. I didn't need that. I do want to hide element. Yeah, okay. Now I want you to do that. Sometimes you're too eager. And then we want to also show element, show login error. And the other place we're going to need this is in the on auth changed. Right, we want to swap this, and that will become show login form, hide log out, and hide sound bite. Perfect. Okay, that's fixed there. And then let's go add back those hidden values to the containers that we want to use. So this is going to be error hidden, and logout button is hidden. Actually, this should be in a class. And then who else needs that? The container doesn't have to be hidden yet. Oh, I don't get 200. I get like sub 200. I'm like 150 to 180 on average. I've been meaning to do like those little training typing tests to get better and faster, but I am very busy and don't have time to do that. So that's in one of my, okay, this is actually a really funny thing that I've been telling to some people, but with the PhD, I'm very busy, very occupied on things, on like writing and a whole bunch of other things. And so I'm like, but what if I just, had a post PhD plan of all the things I want to do? And I thought more about it. And then there's a Discord server I share with someone that I was like, what if I just have a list of all the things I want to do? And so then the first day I made it, everything that I posted was in caps because I was very excited about things. And so I think something else I'm going to have to add is that training my words per minute to be above 200. Is it 200? Am I lying? Is it actually like sub 100? I don't even know anymore. It's been so long. I'll have to do that some other time. Y'all can ask me it today in Global Hack Week. I think tomorrow I'm doing it, I'm doing it in 2 days. So ask me then if I've taken a word typing test recently, and to tell you what the actual number is, because I think I'm lying. I think I'm not actually 160 plus. I think I am actually 60 plus. Something does not compute on that number, and I'm like, I don't want to lie, but I don't remember what it is. Anyway, what else do I need that's hidden? The logout button's hidden. There should be 3. Yes, I need to make the sound value hidden. That's right. I always get this question in stream, and I answer it a variety of ways. A PhD is not. A lot of people think it's for smart people, and I really, really think it's for people who are stubborn. No. Well, there's a few. I'm not one of those. I'm not the person that you should be asking. What's it called? There's a question that's asked to scientists as kind of a joke. Is that it's not, can you do it? It's, should you do it? I'm outrageously ethical. Like, I beat consent over the head with my data collection and whatnot. And I think I've given like an AI ethics like workshop, like either 1 or 2 Global Hack Weeks ago, because it is related to my work. Even though it's not AI specific. I just happen to have the experience. But there are a lot of people who kind of go the mad scientist route without realizing that they're doing it, because they're not being inclusive or ethical with their work, which inherently means mad scientist to me. I do have friends that joke that they're mad scientists because they work in biology and with viruses, which is very cool. I'm very like jealous of their stuff, but they're not actually mad scientists, because they're like, oh, I'm trying to like solve cancer, or like this one specific strain of cancer, or like use these plant cells to like figure out this one other strain of some like dangerous plant virus, or lots of different things. Which I'm like, that's so cool. I'm so boring comparatively, but I mean, everybody has different skill sets and things that they get into. I really liked the education bit of things, which is why I went that way. I'm just not showing you what's on the screen because I'm just testing the login really quick. I want to make sure. Oh, you know what? I didn't actually set up the CSS. I'm silly. I have some default CSS that I made in an in-file style because I was lazy. The common theme here is I was lazy. This goes in head. Let's go ahead and add that. Okay, now let's go and deploy that. And then while that's deploying, I'll tell you what's going on. Anything with the dot hidden class is going to be display none because I want it to be hidden. Error, of course, will be in red. This needs to be updated from auth container to login. Do I have a container? What is oh, that's just sizing. I don't care about that. Login, that's just merging stuff. Okay, I don't need to redeploy that then. All right, let's go ahead and refresh that. Let's see if that fixed it. I should open the console. I'm very temporarily not showing you just because I'm not sure what's going to pop up really quick. Once I confirm what's going on, then I'll make sure that things are working the way I want them to. Obviously, if it's not working, I mean, I'll tell you why, but I want to just make sure that it's not working. Okay. Ethically intentioned means you didn't do your job. If it's intended and it's not acted on, then you're not being very ethical. Yes, people stop counting after year 3 to 5. I've stopped counting after 5. There are others in my lab who have also stopped counting. And so we all joke that we're like, yeah, we're year 5 still. No idea what it is. We know exactly what it is, but we get more and more stressed out about the longer that we go. What do you think is typewriting really useful for us software? I'm not sure what you mean by typewriting. I'm really confused. Oh, yes, that kind of study. I point you to any security reports, any reports on security or cybersecurity or backdoors, and how sometimes companies respond really positively and they're like, wow, thanks for finding that. We'll go patch that immediately. And sometimes companies are like, we have no idea what you're talking about. Also, we're going to defame you and sue you and various other things because if you go public, blah, blah, blah. Which is a very real thing because companies get bent out of shape when there's backdoors and that they did not find it. And so they try to fix it, but then they obfuscate the fact that it was found and spread misinformation. So the dangerous results is that you politely report. So in the security context, you report it to the company and then the company decides to say, well, F you. We don't want anybody to know about this, which is not good. As far as dangerous results, generally papers try their best to toe the line if they're written by good people, basically. I don't know how to safely say that. There are a lot of papers that intend to be ethical, don't know what they're doing, get published anyway because people don't know what they're doing either and think it's a great study. And I will point you to a lot of ists and isms that lead to that are unintentional biases that impact the quality of the research that makes it out. Because I have borne witness to some really bad studies that got published and they should not have been published. And I can't say much more than that on that one because that would be I have plans for that one. I have plans. I have not delivered on said plans because I've been busy. Anyway, Any other questions? That's a neat idea. Tell me how much time I have because I don't. I'm also very limitedly online. I'm a very private person. My opinions bother people, certain people, and so I have to be very careful. Anyway, getting back to this, this is still broken because I don't know why it's not working. We did that. So it's some of it's broken, but some of it's not. So we're just gonna go through it line by line, just fix everything. Alrighty, let's go check the JS because something is wrong. Alrighty, on auth state changed. We want to check if the user is logged in. Then we want to get the sound ref, and then we want to do on value changed. And then we have this data, what I pasted. Okay, so on auth changed is fine. Log out. Sign out. Oh, .den. Oh, I forgot to add some things here. Password. Oh, no. Why are we doing... Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that works. Hide element. Yes. Hide those. Show. Oh, we're already doing it in 2 places. I'll let it be. And then we also want to show the login form. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then let's go up to the login form. We add event listener. Let's do onClick instead. And then prevent default. We don't need that anymore if we're not submitting because it's not a form. I told you this was going to introduce issues. Let's see, sign in then, use your credential, hide elements, do stuff, great. Okay, and then we have the functions themselves, and then we have all that jazz, and then we have the configs. Okay, let's do that. Firebase deploy. It's good to discover security flaws. It's also dangerous for certain companies. It's like the difference between white hat hackers and others, to be honest. Anyway, no new chat messages. Great. Let's go see if this works now. Please work. I would very much like you to work. Does this work? No, the login button does not like me, so perhaps there's something that's not quite linked up correctly. These are all for formatting. Yep, so that's fine. Let's go back to our index. And then we have our login. We have type of email, password. Then we have ID, email, password. We have the button ID as login BTN. Login BTN. Oh, hang on. Does that matter? Yes, it does. That's why. Login button BTN. This is login BTN. Logout button. Great. That's probably why it's not working. Let's also rename that to this. Paste. And Firebase deploy while we continue investigating. Login button, error message. I think the rest should be fine. All right. I should have made a simpler login. This didn't need to be what it's been. You know, I spoke too soon earlier when I said this was going to be easy and everything would work. New plan. Paste. We're just gonna... I know it works. Just gonna do this. This is what I get for Copilot. This is what I get for Copilot. Shame on me. Okay. I don't know what the disconnect is, but at this point, we're pretty much using the same stuff anyway, so. Right. Cannot read properties of null. That's okay. Let's try again. If I can type, because apparently I can't. Oof. Did I change the password and not realize it? Something's wrong. What did I change? This worked yesterday. So, what's going on? Are you broken because of line 27? That's fine. Why are you saying there's a problem? Sure, let's try incognito. GHW cloud. Console. Refresh. You might be right. That might have been what was going on. Ah, well, it works now. So, all right. Let's go ahead and reduce the size on this. Oh, hang on. And then 1 moment. Okay, so you saw the login. Good catch, Stevie. And so now it's logged in where it shows a value of the int and we have a logout button now. And then we have the logout. Oh, it clears it now. It wasn't clearing yesterday. Cool. Well, that's fine. Okay, so let's actually make this do things now. Let me go sign in again. And let's go hook it up to our ESP32. I said I'd made some changes to basically make life easier. So let's go ahead and leave that. But I saved it for later, so that way we could get another part of it working for our second part. Let me go ahead and connect so I can share. First, let me. Make sure the screen is ready to be shared. Present screen. Alrighty. So that is ready to be shared. Let me flash this because it's going to take a hot minute to do that because Arduino or because embedded systems. So last time we got the sensor working, but I found out that the Wi-Fi module takes up the pins that I had originally used. And so I have to now hold my wire to the pin that I want to use when I want to send data. And so to prove that this works, because nothing has changed in this code, once this uploads, I'll connect it to the pin. You'll be able to see changes on this, what's it called? On the screen. And then we'll go ahead and switch up the ESP32 side so that way it starts doing timestamped data. And then see how we can get it rendering on the front end side, which I didn't actually prep beforehand. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, Let's make sure. All right, we're good on that. Cool. That's solved. It's still compiling. It's going to take forever. In the meantime, how's everybody's Global Hack Week been? This sketch will be a few minutes. Unfortunately. You missed a lot of streams. Oh no. Yeah, no, there's plenty of recordings up. They're on YouTube for sure. Twitch has been not the best at seeing past recordings, depending on how far back you want to go. But yeah, definitely check the recordings. Honestly, couldn't tell you. I have no idea. JS hampers your learning abilities. I can definitely see that. This is where I tend to do a lot of prototyping in Python. But at the same time, JS is a lot of the full stack jobs and the like out there. So having an understanding of what's going on, or at least being able to kind of see what's going on, is good. It's good exposure, at least. But I think that every language is unique for what they were made for, and they're good at it. But when people try to be like, well, why can't I do this other thing that this other language is better for? It's like, oh, here we go. It is still compiling the sketch. I should put background music. If only I could play the Jeopardy sound and we would just listen to that until this sketch compiles. This is also why I didn't do a lot of, what's it called? I didn't want to do anything terribly hard with the hardware stuff because I knew it would take a really long time to do things. Because such is hardware. And like hardware requires patience and thoroughness. Okay, it compiled. Now it needs to flash it. JS in general is a mess. Yeah, I would. It doesn't help that browsers are also trying to be restrictive about their changes and impact other browsers as a form of competitiveness. It's just, it's a war out there. All right, we are writing and flashing. We are at the 20% mark. This is what I get for doing a hardware hack. It's so fun, but so tedious. I'm so glad I pre-prepped code for this. It's the reason. Okay, cool. So like the number just changed on screen. Yay. It's not a good number because it's not connected to the pin, but that's okay. We should have accurate numbers in a couple seconds. Hey, there we go. So I have to keep talking for it to be loud enough to actually catch me and give me a number above 2,000, I think. But my hope is that if I keep talking loudly and long enough, it will eventually update with the 2,000. Oh, no, it's because I blew it out. Great. It's because I was too loud. That happens. Hang on. Just give it a minute. There we go. Okay, so we're back to normal numbers. But the point is we have sound values now. Hooray. All right. So now that we have this coordinated, we can see what people do to actually get things working. Let's go ahead and disconnect because I don't want to use data on that one. But cool. So we have now our real-time sound sensor data. It displays on the screen. Hooray. Now, let's make meaning out of it. So we only get in a value that's being updated in a specific path. It keeps replacing the past value. We don't have any historic value. So what we're going to do is we're now going to go ahead and replace that code to do something different, where I've only made additions to the code and then a couple commenting, which I'm going to go ahead and show you all. Because what we're doing with that one is that we're going to start sending data as packets or JSON packets actually. And we're going to get timestamped data, which is much more important if we want to look at charts or other ways to display our information. If we just wanted real-time data, we're done, like, period. Like, we could put this on a dashboard and we can just be like, all right, let's just wait every 15 seconds for our sound sensor data. Great, problem solved, project done. But if we wanted to do anything as far as making meaning, then we're going to need charts or some form of ways of tracking trends. And the best way to track trends when it comes to sensor data is data over time. Especially if you're getting continuous data and whatnot. Ideally, we would reduce the amount of times that it posts to the database, but for the sake of, I just want proof of concept, we're going to use the longer one, the 15 seconds approach. It's fine. But let me go ahead and swap that and zoom in. And expand that so people can see. Okay, cool. So this is all of our old code plus some extra. So the code originally was just sending over a singular update every 15 seconds, right? Now what this code will do is, instead of updating that test int path, is it's going to create a timestamp path and then upload the sound data at the timestamp and then timestamp itself. So let's go ahead and see what I did. Did I paste it in? Nope. Wait, oh, it's because I put it elsewhere. Got it. Okay, so some new additions are, I added these two new libraries. I had to install the NTP client, but the point is, what I'm doing is I'm getting the time since epoch or epoch, depending on who you're talking to. I think we had a conversation about that a couple streams ago, back in a few Global Hack Weeks ago, actually. But I'm trying to get the time since then, and I need Wi-Fi connection to do that. So we now have these libraries. I had to install this, so go ahead and go through the management. And then the other bit I did was I added these pieces that we need to actually start sending those JSON packets, get those paths figured out, etc. So we initialize it, make sure you capitalize the F in Wi-Fi. Network UDP, I got the time client. I'm using a specific domain to get those accuracies, ensure that they're consistent across a couple places. This is Arduino IDE. In order for us to do hardware, there are many different IDEs you can pick from. I chose Arduino just because it's much more user-friendly. But what you can do is you can actually set up Visual Studio Code to do hardware code, which I think is fascinating, but terrifying, and I refuse to do it. I'm not ready to switch over to have VSC be my complete and functional code editor. The downside, though, is that this was written in Java, so it is going to just set your fan off. It sets my fan off. So we switch over to the Arduino IDE because we need to upload some code to our hardware. Specifically, we're actually on my Mac now because my desktop does not like doing hardware for some reason. I don't know if there's a glitch in one of my USB ports, or it just, Windows and hardware don't work all that well, which is interesting because some of these like hardwares don't, they have their own IDEs entirely. Like if you're using a microchip controller, you have to use a specific IDE that I think it's like code blocks or something like that. Anyway, the name of this IDE is Arduino. If you just Google Arduino IDE, that's what it will pull up. Right. So it looks like Visual Studio Code, but it's less-ish. Yeah, let's go with that. Anyway, so I have my typical setup of things. I have my timestamp value. I have paths now to the database paths that I'm going to be using. And then I have my JSON object that I'm going to be sending to Firebase, which Firebase already includes this in their library. Again, reminder, this library that we're using is deprecated. Is there an updated way to do things? Yeah, probably. Did I choose to do it? No, because I didn't know at the time. Problem for future me. Hasn't it? It's gotten so much prettier. It's a lot more usable too. But in the same way, it's kind of like, I don't know. I kind of it is nicer to use. It has certainly gotten nicer over the years. Right. So we have our time client where we're just getting the time, get epoch or epoch time, again, depending on who you're talking to. We connect to the Wi-Fi. We get the status. We start our time client, so that way it can actually start receiving the data from that domain. None of this has changed at all. And then none of this has changed either. The only addition now is we have a database path/test. And the reason this is that pathway is because we set up rules in our Firebase database where /test was anyone who's authenticated can read and write to that specific path. So building off of that, we're like, well, let's just, dump that in. We could replace the test path with something else. For example, like, home sensor data versus like outside sensor data or something like that. Very many different ways you could reorient your data and sort it out in a way that you want to access it. Again, this hasn't changed. We're looking for time or for milliseconds since a interval check. And the milliseconds is being calculated from the microcontroller. So if you happen to figure out, or if there's possibilities of doing so, of overclocking your microcontroller, you do risk increasing, I believe, the speed of your milliseconds. I think that's how it works. It's very rare that you would actually do that, though. I don't know why you would. I don't even know if you can. But tentatively, that's logically what makes sense. That's a Google thing. Anyway, we have our timestamp. We get time, calls that function. This hasn't changed as far as getting the sound pin, which is an analog sensor, so we get an analog value. And the parent path is our database path, which we said was /test. We add in our / and we add in that timestamp because this will be changing every however many times we access this data, remember? Then we have, again, we're switching to a JSON setup so we can send a package of information. And the reason I switched to JSON instead of that original, just, hey, write to the data path and write the data type and whatnot, was just because if you want to scale this up is that you probably would want to add more information, like maybe it's a humidity sensor, maybe it's a light sensor, and you want to add those as additional points of data. And so the way you would do that is just add, a sound path. Maybe there's a humidity path. You would add the value, convert it to a string. And then this is just a print line, as well as sending stuff out in that function, that set JSON, and then it will resolve it for us, which is quite nice. And so I've commented out what was originally here, but if we wanted to, we could go back and test it if we wanted to, where we just set the test/int path with whatever it is that we're working with. So once again, this will take eons to flash, which sucks. But I do know that this works because I did test it right before stream. It just took forever to flash. But those are the small changes that we've made it's not actually updating the values right now. It needs to compile first. So it's going to use what's currently loaded until it starts to flash. As you can see based on the sudden 102. Or actually, no, you can't see it. I can see it, but there's a sudden 102 that showed up and now a 0 on the sound sensor data webpage. But while this flashes, as you can see, it's going to take quite a bit of time. It's doing a lot of gathering packages and resolving them and whatnot. So we're once again in a waiting game. So this we're not going to see in the web page yet. We need to actually add in the code for that. But specifically, we're going to be seeing it in the database, which I'll go ahead and pull up and swap over once this compiles again. Chances are what we'll do is I'll show you the code and then we'll take a 10-minute break. So that way I can go pull up the stuff I need to see how we can get the data on the webpage, because I did not prep that and I would like to make sure I know what I'm reading before I read it in front of you all. But I also want to encourage you to look into different JS chart libraries. There are so many charting libraries out there. But depending on what you're looking for, different libraries would suit different needs. Again, coming back to that original question of choosing a microcontroller, choosing a database, what best fits your need at the time of creation or what project it is that you're scoping out, right? And so that is the reason as to why I didn't specifically start the chart prep, because partially I wanted to see if anybody had any suggestions for a preferred chart library. And then we can look into it and see if it's appropriate enough for what we're trying to do. But then also, again, showcase that now we're getting data over time in the database, that now we can start figuring out, like, well, what do we want to actually do with it? Yeah, it's still compiling. In the meantime, any questions, comments, concerns? I know we blew through a lot of things and I kind of cheated by pasting my working code because I just didn't want to deal with bugs for too long. Copilot always does me dirty. It always breaks things for me when I'm trying to replicate things. It's getting there. One day it will flash the ESP32. One day. It's funny, I have more hardware work to do after this. I have a project that I'm working on that requires an audio codec, and I'm like, audio codecs are a different beast altogether. Wow, no questions. Impressive. Or is everybody watching my code compiled and upload? So you see that the sketch is using like 92% of my bytes available. That's why you have to pick a microcontroller that has the right size. First of all, you spelled it wrong. Sunhax is all lowercase, and because you just said that, now I'm angry. Or because you spelled it that way, now I'm angry. I'm biased because I'm a founder. So check yourself before you wreck yourself. Spell it right. But I'm actually very excited for the event. The students are doing a lot to make sure that it goes well this year, and it is a very beloved event to my heart. Because again, I founded it, and I'm so interested to see what the new generation wants to do with it. Because like what I did was for a different generation. We had different needs and wants, and I want to see what they want to do. Alrighty. Let me go ahead and swap screens. Alrighty. So you can't see it, but let's zoom in a bunch. Come on. All right. So now we have this timestamp information that is going on. Obviously, it's reading 0 for sound, but it will eventually show the correct value when I finally connect our stuff. But you can see it continues to add new values. So let me go ahead and connect this and hold it there for a hot minute so we can actually see the data is updating in the database. So it'll flash green when it does the update, and then we'll go ahead and open that timestamp. And voila, we have our sound value. And so it'll show us another one, which probably will change the value. Hack Arizona's dead. I'm still waiting for the organizing team to come back. I really loved Hack Arizona. That was a great event. That's actually where I got started. They were my first hackathon. And yes, Sunhacks is all in person in Arizona. We unfortunately don't have a hybrid component anymore because it's just not possible with the capacity to support it. So in person only, sadly. But yeah, so these values are changing. And we have a working database. Yay! Cool. So let's go ahead and disconnect that. I don't want to get more garbage values of nothingness. And then, so at this point, I actually don't need my laptop anymore because we don't need to change the code. What we can do is I can let my poor laptop finally take a break. We're going to take a 10-minute break, but you're welcome to drop more questions in chat while we do. I can finally close a whole bunch of tabs. Oh my goodness, yay. Anyway, so the way that microcontrollers work is once you flashed it, you just need to provide power for it, and it will do what you told it to do when you flashed it. So at this point, I could put my laptop away and say plug in my microcontroller just to power. I don't even need to see the outputs, and it will work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that. I didn't travel a ton to events in the Midwest because I would have had to fly and I didn't have money in undergrad. I drove a lot to West Coast events, and I drove to Hack Arizona, and because it's a 2-hour drive to Hack Arizona from where I am, give or take another 30 minutes, and then it was like 6 hours drive to like LA, San Diego, etc. So I attended a lot of hackathons that were just starting out on the West Coast way back when, and now they're like really big. Sunhacks has actually maintained its size pretty consistently, minus the like COVID year and hybrid year, of course, because I mean, COVID and post-COVID was a bit of a rough start, but I have a lot of love for the team. I know they're doing a really good job. The website looks really cool this year. I have to say that the biggest compliment that Sunhacks has gotten is that we are known for not cutting corners and doing a really good job. Being that we don't cheap out on some things. Yes, it's costly, but it really makes for a better experience. A couple years back, we actually did a Windows 97 version of our website, which was really cool. It even had like an Easter egg where you got like pop-ups and stuff. This year, we're actually calling back to our desert era. Our founding hackathons were Arizona themed because they were deserty. And so now it's a desert themed event this year. So a bit meta, but I'm really looking forward to it. You could show up as a mentor or a judge, or otherwise. There are many options instead of participating. We really value a lot of the community that comes in. Okay, like I said, we're going to take a 10-minute break. I know we'll have probably about 20 minutes, so we'll probably go through those charting libraries instead of doing some integration. I'm still going to take a look at what we can do as far as getting that data, so you at least have a starting point. But then we'll be just about at the end. But as a quick double check, I want to see how far we got. We updated the web app. We added login and log out. We got the sound value on the web page, and we updated the ESP32. We did it, folks. We actually finished a stream. Oh, good. That's awesome. So we get to talk about picking your charting library. I'm really happy with this. I'm really glad that this workshop ended up working out. We did not get trapped by the bug. Yay us. Yeah. So 10-minute break, and then we'll talk about charting libraries. Take a chance to either take a break or go find some charting libraries for us to talk about. If not, I have a few that I can pull up. And yeah. So BRB. Where is the 10 minutes? 10 minutes from now is a time that I cannot calculate in my head, apparently. Save. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. I have investigated. I have answers. I don't have solutions, but well, I kind of do. So I will say, I think Alberto will do a much better job of talking about querying data, but that is for later. And so all the Firebase stuff that you've learned in the last few workshops, you can go surprise Alberto with how much you've picked up that you can perhaps have a better time at his workshops. I know that he has 3 of them. It's like a multi-part 0 to hero Firebase setup. I knew it was happening at some point. I just didn't know if it happened while I was streaming or after. Anyway, so what we've done is we've hooked everything up. Data is being sent. Hooray. And the last thing we did was that we set up the ESP32 to save data under timestamps. So how do we query our data to actually get it? And what do we do to make meaning of it? I figured we'd start out with the fun one, which is go look at charting libraries. If you had an idea or had a link, share it now, so that way I can go ahead and open those. If not, I'm going to go ahead and open what I found and saved when I was doing some searching last night. Let me open this in a new window and then open that in a new window. Giving you all time to share what you find while I open up what I found. I know there is a GitHub that has all the charting libraries, which is awesome. And I use that to pick out what I wanted because the GitHub itself that I didn't save like a moron had a listing of top charting libraries for JavaScript or top charting libraries for different specific things where it's charting, mapping, and a couple other things, which was very, very nice. But I'm not seeing anything in chat, so we're going to go ahead and pop this up. Zoom in. So there are a number of resources out there, and I picked from within those a subset that, depending on what I wanted, hopefully would do things. Being that I'm okay, here is the chart.js, which looks very pretty color-wise. I'm very drawn to these. I really, really like the colors. But independent of the colors, I'm wanting a library that can do the performance I need. Perhaps I might have a lot of data points, or I might have a lot of data points coming in quickly. Animations are cute. I'm not a super big fan of animations because it takes from the time to read and understand a graph. I like that this has mixed chart types and that I can choose different types of axes. And so it's telling me a number of things that's very nice. I like that it's responsive. Pretty useful. And it's also open source, which I always like to pick open source where I can. Then we have Apex charts, which seems to be straightforward, tells you what it is. I like the colors. Sorry, ADHD. Anyway, so there's a number of graphs that they're showing us. They have some sample projects. Seems like their goal is being also open source, which I like. Create beautiful and interactive visualizations. I do like pretty charts. I like good math. But it seems like they have a number of samples, which, as someone who is bad at math, bad at charts, bad at many things, tutorials are the reason I get things done. And I have to search pretty deep and hard for things, so having it up front is very nice. Again, super responsive, has a wide range of charts. Doesn't really tell me, though, if it handles high data rates or having to store a number of data points. So that's kind of an iffy on me, but it looks like, they have some good stuff. We have Plotly, which, if you're familiar with it from the Python side, I think this is the JavaScript version. Yeah, it powers the Python and R modules in their respective versions. So you have sensor data. In order to make meaning of it, and this is not a stupid question, not at all. If you want to make meaning, charts are the easiest and fastest way to make meaning. Let's say you want to look at data over time. So in my case, as you've kind of figured out, I live in a very hot place, which means that what I'm being told on the weather, while usually right, I don't actually watch the weather. I check it on my phone. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I check the weather on my phone, and honestly, I'm not always home to adjust my AC. So with where I live, the AC turning on is a big power draw. And depending on how hot it is, I might want to react to some of these temperatures to better cool my house so that way I'm not upsetting the power network, say at 5 p.m. when everybody gets home. So there are power restrictions in my area that basically say if you are on this plan from a certain time to a certain time, they discourage you from using energy by charging you 3 to 4 times, if not more. And they also will have like a time saving or power saving moment when they're expecting there to be a large draw of power. So maybe I'm away on vacation and I'm getting the alerts on my phone from my Google Home, but I'm not understanding why. Like, sure, I could go pull up and be like, okay, what's the weather in city of hot place? Okay, what's the weather in my zip code? Okay, and it's very annoying because I only get the air temperature for the nearby signals or sensors that they have. What if I want a sensor at my house? In which case I want to say, hey, show me, the current temperature. And so we're still not getting to the time and making meaning part of it, but I promise we're getting there. So let's say, it's 110 Fahrenheit, which is like 40 something C, outrageously hot. And so therefore I'm like, oh shoot, my cat is going to be, having to deal with potentially the AC being too warm, too early, and then we get charged, and then that's less money I can spend on her. And so something I might do from a future standpoint is that maybe I want to better understand what the temperature was at the time of when I'm looking at my power charges. Like, hey, is this power charge weird? And so I can pull up my sensor data over time where I can be like, it said it was 112, even though the weather may have said 110, and I don't remember what it is 4 days ago. But based on my app, it says, hey, power spiked 4 days ago at around 3 p.m., which was when maybe the sensor data was taken. In which case I can be like, there's a weird, high point in my graph. Let's go investigate that and see what happened. Is it that there was sensor failure, or is it that it was just really, truly hot that day? In which case, how did my power react to that? Where usually it reacts really badly and I have to pay for power a lot more than I want to. So that's one like very real-time, real-life experience. Another way is that maybe you are looking to find out if there's leaks in your house. So there are a number of like attachments you can put on your water lines if you happen to be involved in house stuff, or that you could deal with it from your apartment where you're looking at whatever the main intake line is, and you're trying to say like, well, how much water is being used? Because maybe what I'm being charged for is not reflective of what I'm actually using. Like, am I actually using thousands of gallons of water a day, or do I have like a horrible break in the line that I'm not realizing? And so looking at that trends over time, if you had already, when you first moved in, you put it in, you can actually see what happened 2 years ago or, a couple months ago and be like, has it been happening for months or did it just happen yesterday? And there are different things that when it comes to like either owning a home or renting a home, staying in an apartment or being in your parents' home, there are things that people wish that they had continuous data on. But if they see all this continuous data as, say, a single line or a single column, that means nothing. It's just a bunch of numbers on a page. And it's like, cool, I can look at a spreadsheet, but what does it mean? And so turning this to like a spreadsheet focus is maybe that we just want to see a table and we want to like, if you're like someone who likes numbers or data, you probably want to make meaning of it with charts. You want to see what happens over time. You want to see what happens when the temperature is high. You want to see what happens when other things are high. You want to see like, hey, when do I see the most spikes in my graph? That kind of stuff. The reality, I think, I think this is a love letter to my ops friend who is very, very obsessed with data and charts. All that to say is that people who are tracking information, they want to see trend rates, and trend rates use charts. So putting it outside of the smart home perspective, let's say instead we have a bunch of data of when people enter a workplace or leave a workplace. And we notice that people really tend to come in at 9:05, even though the workday starts at 9. Could it be because there's a giant line when people are checking into their workplace that's what's holding them up? And even if they were on time, they're now late. Does that mean that we can react to that by adding in a new way of doing check-in or expediting check-in to ensure that people are no longer late to their jobs? So it's that reaction, it's that proactive information lets you react accordingly because you're able to now see what happens over time. You're able to see what are those weird things, what are those outliers. And so you also see this in like machine learning and AI, like machine learning specifically, where it's a bunch of trend data. It's data over time or labeled data, and you're looking for those outliers. And so seeing it comprehensively and all put together makes for a happier life than having to be like, yes, the current maximum is 5. And then you scroll down some more. The current maximum is now 10. And you keep scrolling some more. And the current maximum, and you're keeping this in your head. And it's like, computers can do this for you. Let the computer do its job. Yeah, thank you. This is a very short version of how to say it. Charts make things easy to understand. Charts make data pretty. Data is not pretty in original format. Data is natural, but data does not make sense. Until you see it in the chart, then you can start going, oh, hey, there's some weird trends. But also, like, if you're using a garbage chart, people get mad. Use a nice, pretty chart, because then people are like, oh, wow, it looks so great. Oh, wow, I like looking at this data, even though it's telling me I'm losing thousands of dollars a minute, and whatever. Yeah. At the end of the day, like, Iron Man is actually a great representation of us as hackers, because we are cobbling things together from what we find. And we can make things meaningful-ish. And then when we go back and make it better, it will be more refined. So we have been cobbling through this workshop. But to show true, I guess, improvement is to learn what the right thing to do is and not the cobble together thing to do is. But until you learn the language, you don't really know what's right. So that's why we do these things. Hello, friend. I agree with you. I say the workplace example because depending on where you are, some people are sticklers for it. But yes, I feel. No. You're absolutely right. It is unfortunately a very accurate example of how a lot of bureaucratic and company focused people tend to approach things. In past employment, I've had to do a lot of work that has spent time in analyzing where money was going, because they were going to be making budget cuts, and I had to investigate what developers were doing, which did not make me feel happy, but also made me realize that developers are irresponsible and forgetting to like close their environments or applications that cost them money. So friendly reminder to pause any apps that you've created in case you're not using them, in which case they're running up your phone bill or your bills. But no, I absolutely agree. Time checkers are horrible. And we are moving toward a more flexible work environment, even though there's a lot of pushback. But there are many, many ways people use information. Not to say that I agree with them. The opinions I have reflected do not necessarily, or the examples I've presented do not necessarily reflect my own opinions of things. Let's put it that way. Okay, so we're looking at charts. Plotly is very popular as far as Python and Ruby, or not Ruby, R. Then we have graphics.js, which is lightweight. Depending on how we want to do things, this might be actually very useful. Specifically because it's more about drawing, which maybe I want to track where my robot vacuum goes, and I want it to draw a map of the house and see where it gets stuck, perhaps. And so find those problem areas in my house without sharing my house information, across the internet with certain robot companies or robot vacuum companies. Google, of course, has its own set of charts. I mean, we see it in Google Sheets and a variety of other things. It would be not a bad idea to use the same things involved, but if you want the customizability, then don't. Looks like we also have Chartist.js, which I also picked, where they have simple and responsive charts. I do like responsivity or dynamic responsiveness and whatnot, just because it does mean that people can change the sizes of things and look at them and actually make meaning out of it, instead of being like, why can't I see this chart? Zoom in and it just doesn't change or something like that. So again, it's giving us, fairly consistent expected charts. I'm not doing anything particularly fancy with it. I do like that they tell us browser compatibility. This is actually very nice. The other ones did not tell us this. And then they also have a couple libraries and wrappers, which this is actually a really nice site as far as telling me what's going on and like how to use it ish, or like examples, but doesn't quite give me what I need in terms of like, will it handle large amounts of data, or otherwise. So all that to say is that there are many charts that you could pick from, that you would have to then go learn the library a bit, because again, there's documentation. You would have to learn the library enough to say, okay, given a stream of data, process it into something meaningful. So as far as how we would actually do that, I'm not actually going to demonstrate that code-wise. But again, you've gotten a chance to preview some charts that I picked out that I had already was like, I like what these do for my use case. There are many more charting libraries and mapping libraries and other things that do other functionalities better. than these. But as far as querying the data in Firebase, this is the last thing we're going to do before we wrap up for the day, which is I wanted to show, like, okay, so let's say you go ahead and use a charting data or charting library, and you want to actually populate it. Instead of doing what we've been doing in the web app that we created, where we're only querying it a single time, or saying like, hey, when the value changes, update us. Because we're now using timestamps, which means that URL changes or that path changes, we want to query the data specifically. And so much like you would SQL or anything else, we want to say, order by a specific value, timestamp, order by timestamp. And we also want to limit how much we're using. So you might say, like, start at a year ago to today, or start at the beginning of the year to, last month. Maybe we want to look at things in month intervals. And so depending on how you change those constraints will determine, of course, what data you're retrieving. So in this instance, it's saying that it's giving it to us in a JSON object where they have dinosaurs apparently that they like. And so it has all these attributes. In our case, it would have a timestamp, and it would have the sound value as well as a nested timestamp value. It is what it is. But as we add more sensors, maybe it might be, again, temperature, humidity. It might be a battery sensor if we're doing like something that's on its own, doesn't need a cable, in which case we want to say, hey, is the battery level running low? Eventually send us a notification about it. Or maybe you want to see like the battery value over time and see like, hey, if we continue using this type of batteries, we notice a drop off after 6 months or something. Maybe we should use a different brand and see. This is a great way to actually start comparing like certain, what's it called? Like not applications, like implementations, I guess. You can start testing what actually works for you. So they have a number of examples of how they are using it in JavaScript. Sorry, here's the JavaScript one. So they have the reference to the database, in which case order by whatever it is that you're using. In our case, we'd be ordering by the child timestamp or by a value timestamp. And then it looks like it's getting the snapshot of the value at that time, which is great, which is already stuff that we know and we've worked with because we've been doing that. And so in this case, they're referring to like the height within it, etc. Queries can only call one key at a time, ordering by child multiple times in the same query. Okay, so good to know. Maybe we want to order by key. So at this point, I'm looking through the documentation really to understand, like, what do I need? In this case, they have scores. That's cute. This is more about, okay, here we go. So we can use the limiter range. So again, SQL queries, right? Let's say we want to get specifically what types of dinosaurs. In our case, again, at the timestamp, give us all the data for the temperature, give us all the data for sound, etc. And again, this is much like working with a database. It's just slightly reorganized a little bit. But yeah. So if I were to go back and like say do another workshop on this, I'd be spending a lot of time in this documentation of how to retrieve data where I'm like, give me all of the X, give me all of the Y, give me Y from date A to date B, etc. Yeah, so here's the range query specifically where they say start at 3 or start at whatever your ending point is. Okay, so we are pretty much at time. Any last questions? Comments, concerns? Thanks for joining. I've run out of water, so talking is a little bit harder. And I am sorry about that time example. That was not a great example to use. There are many, many other examples that could be used, but that was the one that came up and that was not great. So my bad. I'm sorry about that. Alrighty. Give it a little bit for any last questions, but it doesn't seem like there are any. In which case, I don't know what. Oh, actually, Tetris comes up next. So a really fun time to take a break, brain drain, hang out with another MLHer. I know that'll be in Discord. I know that the MLHer who's running it was like really intent on being competitive or something. So make sure you go beat them. or not. I don't know. I don't know if they're that good. Yeah, no one's asking anything. So I guess then with that, we'll wrap up. We finally have a workshop that finished everything. Thanks for coming, and have a good rest of your day or evening, depending on what time zone you're in. See y'all.